Level 989.
Welcome to 989 on Health, where you don't need years of university to understand the latest news about health and related subjects. As always, we've created a list of helpful links on today's topic at our website, level989.com, and those same links should also be available in your podcast playing app of choice.
This is an informal discussion sharing our personal viewpoints on health and wellness. Don't rely on the information in this podcast as an alternative to medical advice from a professional healthcare provider. For the full disclaimer, please see our website.
I'm Mike Davalos, just a guy, your average Joe, and I'm joined by the opposite of average, Brandon Weintraub, a primary care physician. Good morning, Brandon.
Good morning, Mike.
Today we're going to do an off-the-cuff chat about a quick topic. Warning, we have not spent the hours and hours of research that most episodes require. This is just two dudes talking. So, Brandon, I don't have a little witty repartee about the topic. It's the flu. Apparently, it's really terrible. Now, I'm bad. I don't really follow a lot of daily news. I'm looking up medical articles and stuff for our podcasts, but I don't follow the news day by day. But I'm looking at the flu now. I'm on an article from Fortune.com that says, according to the CDC, there were 4,064 deaths from pneumonia or influenza in the third week of 2018.
That's an awful big number. I realized that this particular flu season was pretty bad, but that's still a startling number. That's the number of the deaths here in the U.S., which is, first world, generally considered one of the better medical systems. And we're still seeing a remarkable number of fatalities from the flu.
The flu, that's viral, right? Influenza virus?
Indeed it is. Flu is considered viral.
So antibiotics aren't going to help.
Really, there aren't a whole lot of... You'll hear people say, well, they can be given antivirals, but honestly, the antivirals that exist are mostly for HIV, and they're not to be used lightly. And their effectiveness on the flu, maybe not so much.
Get the vaccination and don't get the flu. That's the best.
And even that is tricky. Again, I think it's one of those things we've mentioned in the past, but the flu vaccine, as it stands right now, it has a remarkably poor success rate. And there's some good reasons for that.
But they're trying to guess ahead of time which strain is going to be the dominant strain.
Yeah.
And they try to prevent that strain, but that may not emerge as the big strain that year.
And it's not even that they're treating just one strain. So the flu is basically broken down into lettered categories. You've got A, B, and C. The strains of flu that are in the A group, they're the ones that can be passed between animals and humans. So it's where you get things like the swine flu or the avian flu. It's an A type of the influenza virus. The groups that include the B virus, basically, it's generally considered to be those that are really intense, but found in groupings. So schools or hospitals, when you have big outbreaks of the flu in those kinds of places, it's usually a B strain of the flu. And then there's the C strain of the flu, which isn't talked about much because it's generally more mild. It sticks to kind of upper respiratory effects. It's not usually as high a fever. People aren't usually affected by it as badly. And there's also no vaccine for that one at all. So if it's a C-type influenza, your flu shot isn't going to do any good for you. And so what they're doing is each year they select, I wish I had called this up, but it's one of the B strains and 3 of the A strains. I could have that wrong, but generally they'll select a few, and that's what goes into the vaccine. And they actually culture these vaccines using eggs, using egg yolk, I think.
Right.
But it takes quite a bit of time to culture these.
I want to mention something about that. My mother-in-law is allergic to eggs and therefore cannot take the flu vaccine.
Oh dear.
That's the thing, apparently.
Yeah, it's not unheard of. And I don't know whether or not, I want to say that there is a flu vaccine out there that is egg-free, but in order to mass produce the flu vaccines, they generally produce these using eggs. So a majority of the ones that you're getting out there are going to have that egg content, which is unfortunate for people like, what was it, your mother?
Mother-in-law, yeah.
Oh, your mother-in-law, well. All that aside, the flu this season has been absolutely horrendous. And while it's important to get the vaccine, even people who have been getting the vaccine are coming down with the flu. So what do you do, Mike, when the vaccine doesn't work and you're sick and you've come down with the flu and you were feeling fine, and now all of a sudden, 24 hours later, you've got a fever 101 and you feel miserable. What's your option?
Well, I would try not to spread it. So people who are like, I'm sick, but I'm going to work anyway. No, don't do that. Tylenol or ibuprofen, get your fever down. Lots of fluids. Give your body some good food so it can have energy to fight off I know some people swear by a Tamiflu.
Aha, and there you have it. So that's where I was going. All of your options and suggestions are very good ones. You want to make sure to try to reduce the likelihood of spreading the flu, but unfortunate fact, I believe the incubation period for the flu is something like 14 days. A person can be infectious for up to 14 days before and after, so it's not necessarily as feasible as I'd like it to be to keep from being around people and giving them the flu. But you're right, trying to stay away from people when it's in its active form, good idea. Resting, good. And lately, we have been talking a little bit about Tamiflu. And I don't know whether or not Tamiflu is technically over the counter. I know that at one point it was, but now I feel like doctors are actually prescribing Tamiflu. And now that I'm looking at it, I take that all back. It is definitely prescription only. For the longest time, this was the frontline treatment from Western physicians that if someone came to you when they had the flu, Tamiflu, they're going home with a box. And I am fascinated because the question finally was posed, well, what is Tamiflu? It's one of my favorite answers. Number one being it is one of those pharmaceuticals that's from a natural product. It's actually from star anise. I also love the answer because the second part is nobody really knows exactly how Tamiflu is made. The company that produces it basically uses a ton of star anise and beyond that has not released any additional information about the production of Tamiflu.
How can it be legal to prescribe something that you don't know what's in it? That's beyond the primary ingredient.
That's a very, very, very good question.
Because even the inert ingredients in a pill are listed. This is for stability, and this is an antifungal, and this is a...
So that's a good question. And unfortunately, the answer is because it kind of vaguely worked, and it helps the patients.
Has it been grandfathered in, kind of, because it's been around so long?
It almost seems to me like that's the case. I can't imagine any medication now being able to fly in under the radar quite the same way this one has. But that said, if you contact any pharmaceutical maker and ask for their recipe to make a drug, are they going to give it to you?
Right. That'd be like calling their colonel and asking about those 11 herbs and spices.
Special herbs and spices. And so that's what's going on with Tamiflu. But Tamiflu has something of an additional problem. And it's that apparently Tamiflu is incredibly time intensive and difficult to make. So whatever process they're doing behind the closed doors, there is a shortage caused by the difficulty of making this drug. And that's raising prices sky high and limiting patient access to the drug.
You're calling it a drug, but you before said it was star anise, which is some kind of licorice, right?
It tastes exactly like licorice. It's actually a primary spice. It's been used in Asian cooking forever. And it does taste just like black licorice. From what I understand, it's an extract of this star anise. So they're using some sort of process to extract an active ingredient.
Essential oils or something?
From the star anise. And they're doing some sort of process, shikimic acid. And that's what they're doing. They're reducing this star anise and they're using that active ingredient to create Tamiflu. So that's great. But when a big flu comes through, like the SARS epidemic not too many years ago, one of the only things they were able to do is provide people with Tamiflu, but there wasn't enough. There simply was not enough Tamiflu to go around. So it was requested that the company release their general process so that people can create an additional remedy and get this out to the populace at large.
Right. Let more companies make it too, yeah.
And the answer was, I'm sure you'll be surprised, that absolutely not. So Tamiflu is now in surprisingly short supply, especially with this really horrendous flu season we're having. It'd be great to be able to give patients this Tamiflu. It's gotten so bad, actually, and the price is so excessive that doctors are now actually saying, well, we don't suggest Tamiflu anymore. because the cost is so high and it's so difficult to get, it doesn't do enough to protect the patient. At the moment, it's said that it only reduces the length of the disease. If you contract the flu within, I think it's 48 hours, you have to go to your doctor and get prescribed this Tamiflu. And as long as you've got it within that time period and you start taking it correctly, it'll shorten your symptoms. It'll shorten the length of time you are suffering from the flu by about a day. And doctors are saying, well, a single day isn't enough to make the cost and lack of availability of this medication worth prescribing it.
For me, if I got it and they didn't want to give me Tamiflu, but when you think about millions of people and millions of work days, that could be worth billions of dollars.
Indeed, it could be worth a lot of money.
To the economy or to the...
Really, I mean, even outside of the money, a single day for 1 million people who have contracted the flu, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
It really is. Getting people feeling better for even just a day sounds pretty good to me. So it is unfortunate that there is now this pushback against a product that has the potential to be good. But I am also greatly entertained by the fact that Tamiflu is only successful, it's only popular now because it goes through some unknown Western process to create a pill that people can take. And star anise has been used for ages in Chinese medicine to treat a number of conditions, along with some other herbs to treat things like the flu. Not necessarily the flu virus itself, but as treatment for the symptoms that you see. It's nothing new. So the idea that herbal medicine might be able to actually help with the flu, I would love to see that gain a little bit of traction.
Indeed. So if I'm starting to get the flu, I want some Tamiflu. They won't give it to me because we got to save it for the old folks. That's fine. Okay. Could I just take a bunch of star anise?
In fact, there are a few places that would suggest you make a tea out of pure star anise. I don't want to say that it'll definitely work because I don't have any studies in front of me. I don't know if there have any been done, whether or not you get a concentration of the active ingredient that is good enough. But all that said, yeah, I think it's a very good idea. I can't get Tamiflu. I'm going to be miserable anyway. Let me go ahead and grab a bag of star anise and make myself a tea. And you will get at least some of the active ingredient that is in Tamiflu. I actually know of a few patients who have decided to just start chewing on star anise.
That fresh licoricey breath.
If nothing else, at least it's soothing their throat a little bit and giving them some hope that they're going to feel a little bit better.
But these people are treating themselves. They're buying something and using it, and no doctor's telling them to do it or not to do it or how much to do it. It's a bad thing, right?
It certainly can be. We have a little bit of luck there in that the food level therapies, so things like star anise or people who will drink a ginger tea when their stomach's a little upset, we're unlikely to see really severely negative side effects. And in those cases where it's appropriate, you can get the results without having to worry about necessarily going to your doctor every time you have a tummy ache.
If you don't get it from the doctor, how good can it be?
That's a fine question. And how good can it be? I'd argue it can be pretty good. But if you're really worried, if you want something that's above and beyond the star anise you can pick up at the market, you could always go see an acupuncture physician and get them to find out what the root conditions are you have and potentially give you a slightly processed form of an herb.
I don't want to cut you off from anything you want to say about Tamiflu. How does that compare to Theraflu? Are they completely different?
Theraflu is a combination of over-the-counter medications to treat the symptoms.
Basically, Theraflu. It's pseudoephedrine, it's acetaminophen, it's, to my layperson eyes, it's just a collection of over-the-counter things that kind of might help your symptoms a little bit.
Arguably, the Theraflu actually helps the body stop the virus, so kill the virus a little faster, while Theraflu looks like it would make you feel better, but probably not actually shorten the length of time that you're contracted the illness.
Right. Theraflu sounds like most drugs that we take that just ease you off your symptoms a little bit. It's pretty typical.
Yep. Kill the pain, lower the fever a little bit, make it easier to cough up some mucus.
So of the two, you definitely want the Tamiflu if you can get your hands on it.
That's correct. If the doctor is willing to prescribe Tamiflu, that's the way you want to go. The Theraflu is just going to make you feel better, and there's probably a dozen over-the-counter medications that would work just as well.
Okay. To me, the names are kind of a little too close for comfort. If I were the Tamiflu people, I would take some action there.
Would say something about that?
Yeah. I mean, what? It begins with T and has flu in the name. What do you want?
I know, obviously, that is a copyright infringement.
I can see that case getting dismissed, but still. I was confused until today about what's the difference between Theraflu and Tamiflu. So Tamiflu is the herbal, and it actually shortens the duration of your illness. That's what's thought. And Theraflu is just for symptoms.
Correct. Yeah, that's what it seems like. Reading through one of the web links that we will post online, and here's a quotation. Tamiflu is heavily advertised, but many doctors believe that Tamiflu does not work well enough to justify the high cost of the drug or the CDC recommendation that all patients take it. These doctors point out that there is very little high-quality evidence that Tamiflu reduces the rate of serious complications from the flu. Since Tamiflu gets so much attention in the media, you may want to know more. And then they go on to describe a bit of Tamiflu. So there are a fair number of side effect risks when you're taking Tamiflu, and significantly less if you were to try a strong anise-based tea. Guess it's up to you as a consumer, but if you can get Tamiflu, used cautiously in the correct application, I think it's probably a pretty good medication, but worth remembering that it is an extract directly from star anise, so maybe visiting your acupuncture physician can give you an alternative with some of the avoidance of those negative side effects.
That's all the time we have for today. These short episodes are a brief overview of very complex topics. Everything we say is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Licensed healthcare professionals should advise you and be aware of changes you're planning to make to any aspect of your healthcare. Every person's needs are different. The links to references we've made about news articles, medical studies, or other materials can be found at level989.com, along with our contact information and the complete Don't Take Medical Advice from Podcasts disclaimer. Don't forget to take a moment to rate or review us in iTunes or give us a mention on social media. We can't inform everyone if they don't know we exist. Thanks for listening, and now go help yourself.